everybody, welcome or welcome back to a new video. So today I thought I would go through some of my anticipated releases of 2025, some books that I am excited for and hoping to read this year. I did intend on doing this much sooner than now, but sort of like with all of the end of year wrap-ups, favourites, etc. it just got lost. So a few of these are already out, but I thought that I would just sort of talk about a few books that I am excited to get around to reading this year when they are released. I am going to do like a 25 and 25, sort of like my TBR 25 books that I really want to read this year. But when I was making that list, there was like a lot of new releases and I was like, oh, I feel like these are kind of taking up space on my 25 and 25 TBR when really I should be prioritising my physical TBR. So I thought I would kind of like split them off. Obviously some of these will probably still be in that video, but just to sort of talk about some books that I'm excited for, talk about some new releases that I'm sure we are all very much anticipating. So grab a cuppa, get cosy and let's get into it. I feel like one of the most exciting things about going into the new year as like a bookish girly is all of the new releases that are coming out that year. And I know like this year there are some huge books that I'm so excited for, that I know other people that I follow are excited for. And I just think it's so cute that we all get like so excited and hype up all of these new releases. So starting off strong, we have Onyx. And I know some of you might be thinking, Georgie, you have not even read Iron Flame, which is why this is on my anticipated reads and I haven't quite got to it yet. If you don't know, if somehow you've been living under a rock, Onyx Storm is the third book in the Empyrean, I think it's called, series, which follows on from Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Fourth Wing is basically a book that follows Violet and she essentially becomes a dragon rider. That is like the sort of general gist of the first book. I can't really speak on Iron Flame because I haven't read that. It's a romantasy, so we obviously get the male main character who is Xaden, and you sort of throughout the first book pick up on different sort of politics in the world, a sort of rebellion, uprising that is going on, you know, the sort of tension that we know and love in a fantasy book. By the time that I read Fourth Wing, I think Iron Flame was already either out or was like on its way out, and a lot of people that loved Fourth Wing didn't like Iron Flame. And I just thought, if I didn't love Fourth Wing as much as these people anyway, I'm definitely not going to like Iron Flame, because people that loved the first book didn't seem to like the second book, if that makes any sense. I've just heard that it's like miscommunication for no reason, just for the point of adding conflict. It's extremely long, like so long, and apparently like the magic system and the world building just doesn't make sense. So that one kind of fell off my radar. But when Onyx Storm came out, I got such bad FOMO that alone nearly made me start Iron Flame, because I was like, I cannot sit here in this book community and not be reading this book and see everybody talking about it and just kind of be like on the sidelines, like, what's going on, guys, include me. Anyway, I feel like I talked about that book a lot for somebody that has not even carried on with the series. Another one that's out, next up we have Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This one I have seen a lot about before it actually was released. I think it was released last week, but I feel like I follow a few accounts that maybe got like art copies, because what I had heard about this book before it came out was that it was quite spicy. I think it's her spiciest book, and that it kind of like pushes boundaries a little bit, I think, in terms of like her writing and what she's used to. Ali Hazelwood is an author for me that I don't quite know where I stand as of yet. I've read The Love Hypothesis and Love Theoretically, and I did not love those, but then I read Bride and oh my god, I was obsessed with that. And then I also read her Christmas novella, which I really liked. So maybe this sort of like different storyline, moving away from that women in STEM, maybe, I don't actually know, but moving away from that and sort of going into, I'm not necessarily somebody that like really needs spice in a book, but maybe this one will be one that I do enjoy from her, because I've heard rave reviews so far. Another one that I believe is already out is Beg, Borrow or Steal by Sarah Adams. So this sort of follows on from the When in Rome, Practice Makes Perfect little world. I don't know if they actually have a name like as a series, but they basically follow different siblings in this small little town. They are very cute, very easy to read, like small town rom-coms. I loved the first two books. They weren't like 5-star reads for me by any means, but I did thoroughly enjoy them. Very easy to read, very easy to digest, and very quick to get through. Beg, Borrow or Steal follows, I think, is it the final sister, or is there maybe... In the first book we got the brother, I can't even remember his name, and like the pop star. Then in the second book we had Annie, the sister, and the pop star from the first book's bodyguard. And then this one, I can't remember which sister, like which sibling we are following. I don't know if there's only one more or if there's two more. But throughout the other books, you sort of like get hints at them and their backstories and their lives, etc. Wait, actually, there must be two because one of them is no, they're both teachers, but then one of them goes to culinary school, I believe. So I don't know which one this is actually about, but either way, I just feel like her books are so easy to read and I always have a good time reading them, even though they are not always like 5-star best thing I've ever read. I have a great time when I am in that book. So then I'm kind of going to go through in like month order. I do only have books up until about June though, so I don't know if there are any planned for later this year, but these are the ones that I'm excited about. So starting off with Scythe and Sparrow, I think that's how you pronounce it. This is part of the Butcher and Blackbird sort of universe. I'm not sure again what this series is called. Again, I have actually not read the second book, which is Leather and Lark. This is kind of going to be a running theme that even though there are books on here that I am anticipating, I'm not up to date with the series, so I do apologise about that. I am slacking a little bit. So for this one, I actually have no idea who it even follows because, like I said, haven't read the second book, so I'm not like in the know with the characters. But when I read Butcher and Blackbird, if you don't know, this is like a serial killer romance, which was something that I've never read before, but I had such a good time reading it. Like, the trigger warnings, don't let the trigger warnings put you off because they are intense, and I personally felt like the book was not as bad as the trigger warnings made it seem. But I just thought it was such a unique take on like a romance and a dark romance, and I thoroughly did enjoy it. And I don't know why I didn't get around to reading the second one. I think maybe the sort of like novelty of that trope had like worn off a little bit, but I do really want to hop back into it. I'm sort of trying to expand my genres a little bit this year and just sort of read things that I've been putting off. So I would like to get to both of those. Then one that I am so excited about, which actually comes out soon when I'm filming this, is The Rebel Witch, which is the sequel to The Heartless Hunter or The Crimson Moth. It has different names depending on the country, I don't quite know why. But I read this in the summer last year and I absolutely loved it. I feel like this was one of the books that took 2024 by storm, but basically this follows a witch and a witch hunter. I know. So it's a romantasy. We sort of follow our female main character. She is a witch hiding in plain sight. She basically pretends to be the socialite that hates witches because witches are like outlawed, exiled. Being a witch is like illegal and you will literally get executed. So she pretends to be this sort of like socialite whilst she is living a double life as sort of somebody that is helping these witches that are held captive escape. And then she strikes up a romance with our male main character, who is this like head witch hunter. I just loved it, like the sort of tension between them because they are both playing the other at their own game. I ate it up. I read this in like basically one sitting. Again, I read it when I was on holiday, but I literally sped through this in a day. I just thought it was so easy to read, so easy to binge. It is very sort of like predictable, like it wasn't sort of a groundbreaking book, but I just love that sort of trope and the tension that came with it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I am very excited to read the sequel because I'm pretty sure that the ending of the first book ended like on a huge cliffhanger. Then moving into March, we have Wildside by Elsie Silver. So this is part of the, I think it's called the Rose Hill series. They are all like single dad books. Again, this is one that I read the first book, which is Wild Love, and I really enjoyed that one. And then the second one, is that called Wild Eyes? I haven't read that one yet, so I do need to read that one first. But I love a single dad trope. I love anything Elsie Silver writes, like she's an auto-buy author for me, and I love the sort of like small town interlinking series trope. So I'm just very excited to get into this one and to give this one a go. Elsie Silver can do no wrong in my eyes. I absolutely love everything that I've read by her. Then another one that I am so excited for, honestly one of my top reads hopefully of this year, is Sunrise on the Reaping, which is the next installment in the Hunger Games series. This comes out on the 18th of March. So this one follows Haymitch. And I feel like if you are sort of in the Hunger Games world, if you have ever been in that world, everybody and their aunt has been waiting for like a Haymitch book and for Haymitch's backstory, sort of like what went on in his games, because you do get obviously hints at sort of him, his backstory, what happened to him, how he wound up in the games and so forth. But I am so excited for this. I am really excited for the film as well. Like, I think that comes out next year, but I loved the Hunger Games series. I read those when I was like in school. They were like my first sort of little teenage Georgia tiptoeing into the dystopian fantasy sort of realm. So they do hold a very special place in my heart, but when the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out, I felt like I was literally reliving like my teen years, and I'm so excited that we are, number one, getting another book like in this world because it just fuels my nostalgia, and number two, that we are getting Haymitch. I'm so excited for this one. Moving into April. April is such a good month for book releases. I don't know what it is, but I feel like the last few years, the book releases in April have just been chef's kiss. So starting off strong, we have a new Abby Jimenez read. We have Say You'll Remember Me. I know none of the tropes. All I know is that the front cover of this book is stunning. I'm literally obsessed with it, and anything that I've read by Abby Jimenez, loved, absolutely AO. I feel like she does romance with like a hint of deeper personal sort of like stories and plots and characteristics without making it too deep, and I've just loved every single thing that I've read from her recently. So obviously I'm really excited to read more of her books. Her last, like, I think every book that I've read from her has been a 5 stars. I have only read about 3, I think, which have been like her newer releases. So I do have high expectations for this one. Another one that I am so excited for is by Jessa Hastings. She is sort of starting a new, I think it's going to be a series, or maybe it's a standalone, I'm not 100% sure. But this is due to come out the 1st of April, and it's called The Conditions of Will. I am 99% sure that the female main character is actually called Georgia, because I remember when I read that, I was actually like, also she posted like snippets. I'm sure that the girl is talking about Harry Styles when you're sort of like getting to know the character, and in the playlist there's Zach Bryan. I genuinely was like, me? I remember like Siri sending me it and being like, Georgia, this book is about you. So I cannot wait to read that. And also just Jessa Hastings, I love her in general. I would read her shopping list. She is a genius, and I think like the way that she writes is so beautiful and poetic and lyrical, and she is one of my favourite authors, one of my favourite writing styles. And I am so excited to read something that's like obviously not the Magnolia Parks universe from her, and sort of see my thoughts on that one. Then on the 8th of April we have Fearless by Lauren Roberts. So this is number 3 in the Powerless trilogy. Again, I don't actually know what this series is called, but Powerless follows our main character Payden and our love interest Kai. In this little universe, if you don't know, you basically have ordinaries and people with powers. So the ordinaries have been like banished, exiled. They are slowly, not even slowly, they are basically trying to like rid their little kingdom of ordinaries because they believe that they are draining their powers. In the first book, we have like a sort of Hunger Games style tournament, and Payden, our female main character, enters the games, but she is an ordinary hiding in plain sight. She basically pretends to have powers. Obviously we get like a lot of tension and drama in that book, but then the second book, which was Reckless, unfortunately for me, really fell flat. I did not love it. I really thought that I was going to, and it was just so disappointing for me. It felt like there was literally no plot, there was just banter, but it wasn't in the way that we wanted. It was so dragged out, there was no angst, no tension. It just felt like she had ran with the flirty banter of the first book, and it very much felt like a filler book. But I have got high expectations for the third book. I believe this is the final one, just because of how the second book ended, and sort of I believe that Lauren Roberts has said that the second book was a filler book to sort of prep you for the third book. So I'm like, well, the third book needs to be good. So I will very much still be reading this when it is released. And I just hope that I am not disappointed and that it like redeems this series for me. Then we have Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage. This one comes out on the 15th of April, I believe. This is a cowboy romance, again, part of a series. It's in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. Again, I have not read the third book, which is Lost and Lassoed, but I will have read it by the time this one comes out. I love this series. It very much gives like Chestnut Springs vibes. It follows a family, like siblings and their sort of love life, their relationships, all on a big old ranch setting, which you guys know that I love and I will eat up every single time. There's just something about it, like I just feel like I was destined to be a country ranch girl, and it really upsets me, and one of the ways that I live vicariously through them is by reading cowboy romance books. But I love that whole ranch setting, sort of following different members of the same family or like an interlinking sort of friendship group. Those tropes have my heart every time. And I love Lila Sage's writing style. I feel like they are so easy to read, so bingeable. The books haven't been like 5-star immaculate for me, but I do always thoroughly enjoy them. Then we have the Queen, Emily Henry. We have Great Big Beautiful Life, which comes out on the 22nd of April. I do not know much about this one at all, but for some reason this feels very different to Emily Henry's previous works to me. Just even like the title, like obviously we've got like Beach Read, Funny Story, Happy Place, all like 2-word titles, and then now we have Great Big Beautiful Life. That sounds so different to anything that she's released before. I have literally no clue what this is about. I feel like I've heard somebody say that it's maybe like historical fiction rather than romance, or like, I have no idea honestly. I feel like for me, Emily Henry, even though she writes romance and her romance is so good, her books don't feel like romance. They feel more like women's fiction with romance. So whether this is going to be like historical fiction with romance, I have no idea. I also could very much be making this up, but I do believe as well, she said that this book feels like The Last Great American Dynasty by Taylor Swift. What do you even mean? Like, I am sat. Anything Emily Henry releases, I absolutely love. I think like, honestly, nearly every single book that I've read of hers has been a 5-star for me. I just love her writing. She is very similar to sort of like Jessa Hastings and Abby Jimenez for me, in that her writing style and everything is so beautiful and so lyrical, and just every single word and every single sentence I adore, and I always feel so incredibly seen in her characters. I don't know what the hell she puts in her books, but every single one literally leaves me gagged because it's like she's in my brain. Then one that has recently just been announced, we have Rewind It Back, which is coming out on the 24th of April. This is the next installment in the Windy City series. I believe this is book 5 now. We are finally getting Rio's book. So if you haven't read the Windy City series, they sort of again follow like that interlinking friendship group sort of vibe. They are all like sports focused romances. I honestly loved this series so much. Like, I didn't expect to love it as much as I did going into it. I thought I would just find them like easy to read, cute little romances, but I honestly adored them. So throughout the other 4 books, we have seen Rio, again because it's like an interlinking sort of friendship group, they all know each other, and we have seen him sort of like talking about the other couples, interacting with the other couples, speaking about when he's going to find his own romance, and now finally we are getting his story. I absolutely cannot wait to read it. I love Rio and I have high expectations for this one. Moving on to May, we have an Annabelle Monaghan book, which I'm so excited for. We have It's a Love Story. Taylor Swift reference, yes please. I have actually only read one book by Annabelle Monaghan. I read Summer Romance last year and absolutely adored it. It gave me sort of similar vibes to Emily Henry in that it is women's fiction with a hint of romance, but just the way that she wrote like a not typical romance, or it didn't feel like your typical little cutesy rom-com. I loved it, and I loved like the sort of way that she wrote the characters and discovering yourself, womanhood, all of that stuff. I adored it. I do have 2 of her other books on my TBR to read. So even though I've only read one of her books, I'm so excited for it because of how much I loved that one. Then moving on to the last few, going into June. First up, we have Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know absolutely nothing about this book, but I seen that it was coming out and I was like, immediately add to my TBR, because again, Taylor Jenkins Reid for me is an author that literally every single book that I've read of hers has been so highly rated, and I absolutely love her books, like especially her historical fiction books, which I believe this one is, like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six, Carrie Soto's Back, Malibu Rising. Those books for me are so much better than her romance books, and I believe that this is a historical fiction. But yeah, literally know nothing about this, but her books for me are always so good. I feel like I'm always so immersed in the story, feel so connected to the characters, and truly just sort of like, it's almost like you are actually watching a film and you are like in the book, which I love. Then the last book that I have up on my like release radar is Caught Up, which is book number 2 in the sort of Lights Out universe. This one comes out on the 10th of June and it is like another dark romance. This time we are following the female main character from the first book's cousin, Nico. Wait, is it a cousin? Or some sort of family relation? Just when I've said Nico, I'm sure that's her uncle. Anyway, I don't really know much about what this is about. I did read like the synopsis the other day, and I think it follows a girl, like the female main character is a girl that he used to know from school or like growing up, but it is going to be like another sort of dark romance. I don't know about the tropes, don't know what this is going to entail, but he is like in the mafia, so probably like a little bit of a mafia romance. But I recently read Lights Up and I found it so easy to read. Just realised I said Lights Up, but I meant Lights Out. Harry on the brain. But I recently read that and I found it so easy to read and I thoroughly enjoyed it, so I am excited to get into more of her books. But guys, that is everything that is sort of on my release radar for 2025. I most definitely have forgotten some and not remembered to include ones that I probably will end up reading and will pick up, and books that I'm excited about. But please let me know what is on your release radar, which of these new releases you were looking forward to, and I do hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.